Welcome to Hearties. This is the official after show and podcast where we bring your questions directly to the cast and crew. I'm Marg from San Diego.
And I'm Annette from Easley, South Carolina.
And I'm Kim from Barrie, Ontario.
And the man that you guys have been talking about all season long, sometimes not so nicely about Mr. Edwin, the talent that brings that dastardly character to life, Erik Gow. Welcome.
Thank you. Now, I will make one comment because it is in the vein of this season. As Oscar Wilde said, it's better to be talked about than not to be talked about.
I am telling you, we are admins for the private Facebook group. We have 95K members, and the Edwin posts bring everybody out. Everybody's got something to say. So thank you, because you're a gift.
I've got to tell you, one Heartie even said your mustache looks suspicious.
That's true. That's true.
By design, right?
Wow, fantastic. So it looks like you have a pretty extensive theater background. Is that kind of what brought you to, did you grow up in Vancouver? Tell us a bit about how you landed in Hope Valley and When Calls the Heart and what you bring to it.
Absolutely. So similar to a lot of actors from Vancouver, there's a lovely theater scene in Vancouver, and I think regardless of where you are, what city, I grew up in a very small town, very Hope Valley-esque in that way, farming community called Sorrento, BC, in the sort of interior Okanagan of the province. Used to have to take the bus about an hour to school every day. There was one community theater in town, lots of band classes. So I think like a lot of folks, it was starting out in school, getting to do pageants and plays and talent shows. I was lucky to move to Vancouver Island with my family. My dad was a retired RCMP officer. We moved to be closer to family on the island. And I ended up at probably where I most caught the bug was I joined a Gilbert and Sullivan company in Nanaimo, BC. And it really sparked an excitement for opera and classical music for me, for acting. From there, I went on to plays and musicals. And then I would say right around 2018, a good several years after graduating from theater school, talking with my agents, we decided, since it's Vancouver, which also has a very strong film scene, to focus primarily on film and television. And that eventually made the way over to Hope Valley.
So cool to hear that background. I love Gilbert and Sullivan. I would love to see. I think we need to plant that seed. Should there be a 13? I think we could have a little Gilbert and Sullivan moment. I mean, if we got Oscar Wilde, why not?
If we got Oscar Wilde, I mean,
yeah.
How Hope Valley doesn't have a Gilbert and Sullivan Society is beyond me.
Yeah, come on. It's got to start somewhere. Yeah.
Very true.
Fun. Very fun. And this is your third season, right? With
Yes.
Okay. All right. And how was your first audition? Do you remember?
My first audition. So I may have known this was a question coming up, and when I actually did, because I've been asked this one before, is I printed out the original audition posting for Edwin because I was curious. I'm like, how did it all go down? And so I discovered in August of 2022 from the incomparable, wonderful Candice Elzinga, who's been the casting director, I believe, since the very beginning.
Yes,
they're so wonderful. And actually, I bumped into them at the wrap party, and they were just sharing how, especially with the kids who have come up on the show, that she's so invested in all the actors who come on and their journey and their arcs on the show as well. She's an incredible advocate for local actors. So received a message from my agents, and what I was given to play off of was Edwin, character portrayed, is mid-30s to 60s. Thank you. Male, any ethnicity. This cranky tourist takes exception to Hope Valley kids' attempt to limit access to the hot springs, but starts to soften when the kids are open to finding a solution for everyone. Later, when he and his wife arrive at the hot springs before their designated time, he is pleased the kids invite him to join them in the pool. Seeking actors with strong comic timing. That was what I had to go off of for the audition.
Wow.
Nailed it.
So cool.
And I try to keep all the files of auditions I've done over the years. And I did look it up because I remembered, what did I do for, because the two scenes I did was the scene in The Queen of Hearts where I first meet the kids and we talk about the hot springs. And then the second spring was the hot spring scene. And I remember I'm like, I know I did something for the bathing suit. And I had a good chuckle because I had my my bicycle bib. So if you don't know what a bicycle bib is, it's basically padded pants that look somewhat like a diaper with suspenders, naturally. And it was the thing that I had that I was like, looks most like an old-timey bathing suit. So I was even going to share a picture, but then I saw it and then I went, no, that can just live in the imagination because it's just me bare-chested with bicycle suspenders. And that can just live on a deep, dark, secret hard drive. Yeah.
I think we'd like to unearth that and find that.
I'm sure if coaxed for charity or some greater benevolent cause, perhaps.
Very good. Vancouver Food Bank or sounds
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We have some questions from the Hearties. Angie Jordan of San Bruno, California asks, what did you shoot on your first day in Hope Valley? So you've described a little bit of the scenes you've done. What was the absolute first one?
The absolute first one. So, because I love research, I love reading, I love research. I found that day's call sheet and who was in that day and what we were doing.
Oh my God.
I know.
That's amazing.
Well, it's these types of questions where I want to remember like I have a terrible memory. I have an absolutely abysmal memory. So I probably, as much as I say I like research, it's a mandatory thing for me. So the first thing I ever did was in the saloon, and it was when I'm negotiating with the kids. And from what I do remember, it was my first time at the Hope Valley set over at Jamestown. I had my really fun checkered suit, and I remember probably the first friend I made that day and a longtime friend on the show was Sheldon, who works in props. And because I will constantly, it's almost a running gag where I'll immediately go to props and whatever the scene is and be like, okay, can we find? And then usually it's something absurd and then we'll work down a list. And I remember having a newspaper and having a lot of fun with the newspaper in the scene and figuring out some little newspaper choreography, and all the kids were such a delight. So being introduced to them and the other actors, it was such a warm and friendly and like beautiful set to be on.
We love to hear it. So we're wondering, were you initially pegged as an aide to the governor right from the start, or did the writers craft that storyline after they saw the sparks you created on set?
So I was originally supposed to just be in the one episode. So the intention was I would just be the tourist for the one day. So I am hugely indebted to, and of course in love with all the writers at One Calls the Heart. It was such a fun opportunity. And then also I'm probably assuming somewhere behind the scenes, and shout out again to Candace, who I imagine that role probably came across her desk and was like, well, you know who you already had.
Yeah.
And to some degree, I'm sure it's like Broadway tours and cruise ships where it's like, well, he already has a costume, so let's bring him back.
I think it's a little more than that. I think it's a little more than that. Yes.
Yeah.
I think you created a buzz right away. That tension was there, and clearly, you know, obvious from your relationship to Sheldon to what we've heard of your scene partnership with Chris, like you just bring, you know, 175%. So that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
You exude Hope Valley.
Well, you could exude a little more, frankly, but we're working on you. We're working on you.
Oh my. Heather Hood of Minneapolis said Hearties have a hard time pinning Edwin down. So is he evil? Is he an opportunist, self-absorbed, or a weasel? I mean, they have run the gamut on what they've said about Edwin. Is redemption possible? Deep down, does he really have a heart of gold?
That is an interesting question. Now, one of the things that you're taught as an actor, one of the sort of tenets you go by is you're never supposed to judge a character, especially the character you're playing. So whenever you come at it, the thing that's really fun and why I really love characters like this is it's the mining of. I heard it the other day. There was an excellent Laurence Olivier quote where it was less, don't ask me who I am to become the character. Ask me who the character is because I'm playing it. So it's that trying to find as much of yourself in it. So instead of finding, oh, what are all the differences of Edwin from myself? There's a lot, but starting from a place of like, what do I have in common? So it's the trying to find those motivations because everyone, when they get up in the morning, no matter who you are, you're doing what you think is best for the most part in some deep down place. So it's been really interesting to get to know Edwin over the years and try and find those motivations. And I think a lot of those words could probably be thrown around to describe him. And what I love is there's definitely been change over the seasons. The writers have given really fun, really interesting angles to play, and it's all within that orbit of Hope Valley. So I think whatever gets thrown at it, it'll be, no matter his machinations, it'll be interesting to see how he goes about solving the problems from Hope Valley from his point of view.
April Donahue of Irvine, Kentucky also asks, do you enjoy playing characters like Edwin who aren't so easy to trust, or dare I say, that aren't so likable sometimes?
Absolutely. I live my life being very nice, very kind, very Canadian. So when I get the opportunity to play with these other parts, yay. It's such a fun thing to do. And I mean, just like I said, with the finding those parts in yourself where it's like, these are finding those similarities of I know who I am. It's that getting to explore those other parts of yourself because I like to think anyone can be anything. So it's, yeah, getting to play in that gray area is so much fun. And whenever I get to find characters like that, it's such a gift.
We know Edwin had a wife,
That's right.
but he doesn't have kids, I would assume.
I mean, we know nothing of Edwin's wife in terms of the series. One of my favorite costume pieces, I do have the little wedding ring, and I'm constantly fidgeting with it behind the scenes. Very fidgety person, Edwin, and that's definitely a little anchoring point for me. But very little to, I dare say, nothing is known of Edwin's private and personal life.
Yes.
Yes.
I think presumably the way that he acts around children, he probably does not have either he has children who might be miserable, or he's just not a big fan of kids or something. Yeah.
I imagine if Edwin does have children, he very much would subscribe to the Mr. Banks School of Parenting from Mary Poppins.
Yes.
Probably needing a very kindly Mary Poppins Elizabeth-esque instructor to help turn things around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot to be learned there, I'm sure. When we spoke to Chris McNally earlier this season, he just couldn't say enough about you as a scene partner. He just enjoys how creative you are and gave us so many examples of how you make every scene better. And I wonder, is there an example that you can think of? You've already told us about the newspaper. You know, what are you proud of that you've seen either in season 12 or prior season that you feel like was a suggestion that you brought to the table?
Ooh. Suggestion that I brought to the table. What I really appreciate, and especially on the When Calls the Heart set, is it's such a collaborative environment. Every film set is collaborative. For each actor you see on stage, there's probably a good 20 other people behind the scenes running around. So they've really fostered an environment of communication, collaboration on the sets. So whatever your ideas are, they're brought to the table. And one of the things I had a teacher when I used to study jazz music, where it's a democracy. The best idea is going to win. And film sets, if you're lucky, are like that as well, where everyone's giving the best ideas and the cream rises to the top. The one scene I would have to say I'm particularly enamored with was there was one with Chris and I. It's actually on my demo reel.
Oh,
I like that one. Is I'm trying to convince him to take the Jeanette bid. It's one of the heat,
What?
like there's not a, I mean, there is drama in Hope Valley. Usually I'm not associated with the drama, but it was such a lovely scene to work on with Chris. I mean, he's a phenomenal actor, and just the way he listens, the way he's present, and it's getting to see that sort of darker side of Lucas Bouchard, and not even dark isn't the right word, but it's that there's a lot of conflicting things going on at that point of the season. And Chris, I think, really beautifully demonstrates that just in the way that, like in its stillness, it's what's the phrase? It's there's if the eyes are the window, there's a lot of film in the projector. You can see everything that's going on inside. So that's a scene that particularly for me has really stood out. And I mean, I'm so lucky to have a scene partner like Chris. I watch all of his other shows. I remember seeing him in Grease. I've seen him do cameos in other shows and then the Hallmark films. And so lucky to have him as a scene partner.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's often said of Chris, how much he communicates with his eyes, and I think that's really neat. And what about the chemistry between the two of you? What do you like about
Oh,
working?
he's the best. There's so much downtime on a film set. I believe the mantra is hurry up and wait, usually in terms of how things go down. So uh, there's a lot of conversations. I mean, Chris is just such a genuinely sweet and lovely man.
Yeah.
So the conversations, we have a lot in common in terms of interests. So we talk about that. I know closer to the end of the season, Chris was the first of the cast where I got to share because I know he's a dad and I will be becoming a dad this June. So
Oh,
coming up
wow.
very quickly. Thank
Wow.
you. So very excited about that. So I remember telling Chris and him sharing some fatherly advice and getting to know. In fact, just in general, I'd have to say just the male energy over on set. I know with uh, Kevin and Viv, everyone is just so lovely and been getting good life advice.
Love it.
Very
Love it.
cool.
Congratulations. It's very exciting. So
Thank you.
it's increasingly looking as though, despite Edwin's best efforts, that Lucas may not maintain a future in politics. Carol Galgano of Sutton, Massachusetts muses, will Edwin want to stay in Hope Valley if Lucas is no longer in office?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I would say absolutely, because of, I think in terms of the canon of the show, the only established thing that Edwin likes is the hot springs. So to leave that area, in fact, it could be the main motivator for everything he does. Why else would you leave Capital City? But yes, Hope Valley is such a beacon, such a lovely place to be. Yeah, I don't know what the future holds for Edwin Mitchell,
Yeah, because
but
that's where I'm going. Like, presumably
mhm.
Edwin has some access to the polling. I mean, would Edwin predict the downfall of this do-good
Well, as we
governor?
know, polls can be very deceiving. Um, but so is doing the right thing in politics quite often. So to see what's happening with Lucas in the governor race and really having Lee's back with the national park, it'll be curious to see where the chips fall. I mean, it's quite often, I believe it's said politics where things like infrastructure, roads and highways and parks and things, they're usually not the ooh-ah factors with voters, but they're such important everyday things. I mean, personally for me, and I think I've said this before, is for Edwin Mitchell, I genuinely wish, and this will sound funny and I will justify it, wish the worst for them. Because as a character, it's always so deliciously fun for an actor and I think it's why playing dubious or bad characters is so fun because it's such a delight to get out of trouble. And characters who find themselves in trouble are very active and lots of fun to play. So it's it gives a lot of fun things to work with.
Okay, well, is there a business or something that we could see Edwin taking over? I'm just trying to imagine.
Maybe,
What
Yeah.
I
maybe
mean,
he's the buyer of the salon.
we could see. I mean,
Cutting hair
he does like the spa. Could just take a full 1080
He'll
in
become
terms
like
of
the Zen master. I love it.
exactly. I mean, the guy could probably could learn to chill out a bit, introduce cucumber water to Hope Valley.
There you
I
go.
can see
Very
it. I
cool.
see the future. It's beautiful for you. Wow. Okay.
Or Rosemary's theater manager.
There you go.
Okay.
I could be Hope Valley's Kermit the Frog.
In the hot springs. Yeah. Awesome. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
I
don't
was
think
gonna
frogs
say, but
like
I
hot
won't.
water, but no, it's all good. Yeah.
So
Okay.
switching gears, you quite effectively put Miranda McDougall on the spot in her introduction here on Heart to Hearties. We can't thank you enough because
Now,
we wouldn't have gotten to hear her sing. So amazing.
there's a lot of Erik Gows from Vancouver, I'm sure.
Oh, it wasn't
I mean,
you, it
who
was
Right.
knows?
Shane.
I mean,
Oh.
that's jumping to conclusions, but
Okay. Put
Such
on
a
that
common
mustache
name.
again.
yeah.
So speaking of you and Miranda, I loved the movie you did, Return to Office, and Miranda was in that also. And you had some hilarious on-screen moments with Kevin Smith. Tell us about that experience.
That was a ton of fun to shoot. We had the wonderful Peter Benson was our director on
Oh,
that,
wow.
and they
Okay.
were able to assemble this really great team. And so lucky that there was this little cohort of When Calls the Heart folks. Now, I
Yeah.
will say, sadly, I didn't get to run into Miranda on set for that. There was some different shooting, sort of different scenes, but I did get to have the most fun with Kevin. There was a lovely cooking class. I had a ton of fun.
That
I got to
was
play like a very hapless what was I, a human resources manager,
Yeah.
and we got to do this fun little cooking class. And Kevin was this celebrity chef, and he's so funny. He's so funny on and off camera. And again, speaking of wonderful scene partners, Kevin's great.
Mhm.
Well, it was a wonderful movie. I loved it. So was
Me
it
too.
intentional on Hallmark's part to have crossovers from When Calls the Heart? Because we love that they wanted to feature you and Miranda.
I can imagine possibly. I mean, it's too much of a coincidence to be not just
Yeah.
excellent planning. But of course, that is well above my pay grade. But very grateful to be invited to come play.
It was great.
Shay Van Buren of Manchester, Michigan, knows that you teach acting, and she asks, "What's the best tip to someone gave to you to improve your craft that you now pass on to your students?" That kind of puts you on the
Very good
spot.
question.
Or do we need to pay for a class in order to get that?
I'd say, I mean, the most general one is have fun. Have fun, be yourself. You can only be the most you can be. A lot of actors try and be what they think casting wants, or try and chase an idea as opposed to really bringing yourself to a role. That's the fast answer, I'd say. But the lesson I've been working on with myself lately is it's really difficult sometimes, and especially I find with film acting where there's so much space between jobs. It's finding the everyday practices for yourself. So like I have what I do every day in terms of the work that makes me feel like an actor every day, even if I'm not working. Because coming from the world of stage, you could work months on a project, just 9 to 5, like 6 days a week. And I miss that a lot from those days. And it's really interesting juggling a film schedule, which is so sporadic and can be really intense at times and then absolutely nothing for others. So yeah, I guess have fun, be yourself, and find your personal practice.
Very good points. And you've worked with multiple directors on our show. Is there one who taught you a great deal or with whom you had an aha moment? And have you worked behind the scenes yourself?
If I work behind the scenes, I have. So
Sorry, threw that at you.
no. Actually, where I am right now is I have a little studio office in Vancouver where I run a videography company with a friend of mine, and we do photography, we do videography. I do location sound. So for those who don't know, it's the person who hides all the microphones and does the boom pole and the mixing of the board.
Cool.
That's something that I have a lot of fun with.
Well, and
And
you posted those gorgeous photos that you took
oh,
both
that was so fun.
Miranda and
Yes.
And
Jada
Jada.
too. They were beautiful.
Yeah, they were great. I mean, I generally make a habit of not bringing my camera to set just because there's so many papers you have to sign. There's a lot, and you never want to give spoilers. But it just so happened that I had my camera, and Miranda was there that day, and Jada was there that day, and we got to do these little photo shoots because I know Miranda, we're friends, and was like, "You want to do a photo shoot, have some fun," and we did that. And Jada was there as well, and then Jada's mom was like, "Why don't you guys get a few photos?" She's because of course, proud mom is like, "Oh, we never get enough photos of Jada on set," so. That was a lot of fun to do. And they're both so sweet and lovely. In terms of the first part, I do have one, and it is a lovely memory that I have. The first thing I will say is it's very hard to get time with the directors in film and television. Quite often as actors, we have to just arrive ready, be ready to go, because so much of what they're dealing with is on the technical side of things. So it's usually you bring your ideas to the rehearsal. So you'll do your blocking, you'll maybe rehearse it, and then you're shooting it, and then you're moving on. So there's not always a ton of time for discussion, but I was very lucky and fortunate at the end of my very first block of shooting. Neill came and found me. We were at the hot springs. I know. And it's a lesson in a sense. And he took me aside and thanked me for my work on the show, and thank you for coming out. And then one of the things he said was, when we chose you for this part, and I've maybe done this like 2 or 3 times, I just wrote STW on your resume, and I was like, I don't actually really understand what that means. And he said, it means straight to wardrobe. It just lets casting, producers, everyone knows like this is who we want. Just send them straight to get fittings, which was so lovely for me because in that sense, because I'm still pretty new to film and television after working in stage for so long, that what that did for me was give me so much confidence in the sense of it's really hard with film and television because when you're on stage, you get instant feedback loop from the audience. You can hear the laughter, you can hear the applause, you can hear the moments, and you feel that between them. On film, it can so often feel very impersonal.
Right.
Everyone's really trying to get the day, get the footage, get the shots, and then when you're done, you just take off quite often, and you can oftentimes not even see the result for a year or more. So for him to take the time and to say that, it was really lovely to go like, okay, so I'm doing something right, which can be difficult because if you're like me, I love learning and I love improving and working at things. So quite often I'm not asking myself what's going right, but I'm constantly thinking, oh, what needs to improve? How could I have done that better? So for him to take that time is something that I'll always remember because it was such a lovely gesture on his part.
So beautiful. We talked to Martin Wood, one of the directors, earlier this season, and he was talking. He referred to When Calls the Heart as Neill's show, and so every time that we get to allude to Neill and keep his memory alive, it's just a beautiful thing because I think his DNA is in every part of the history of this show. So it's really cool that he planted that with you. That's really
Oh, yeah. It was such a special memory.
yeah, love that.
So lastly, we have a question submitted for you from Chris McNally, Vancouver, BC. There's probably quite a few of those.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
probably a ton of Chris McNallys.
Probably. And he asks, if the two of you were introduced and were meeting blindly for the first time to hang together as friends, what would a night on the town look like? But the year is 2025, not 1921.
Oh, that's so lovely. Ooh,
He
good
really didn't put
question.
you on the spot like
Not
you
at
No.
all.
were,
Now,
Anna.
I will
It's really
say,
very
I'm
kind.
sure there is an extremely large part of the fan base who have thought about this question much more than I have. But oh goodness, make a fella blush, Chris. What would we do? Now, I do know that Chris is a big theater fan as well.
Oh, good.
Right,
So
true.
probably catching a show. I know he
That would
likes
be
his
fun.
vinyls and his music.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
imagine, like me, I'm very much a homebody. I do like just places with a lower energy where you can hear each other, nice conversation.
Mhm.
What I think could be fun is what would I even call this? Not a pub crawl, but because I know Chris, he's not been doing his mixology like he has. He's been going to the
Right.
mocktails, and in
Yeah.
solidarity with my partner, I too have not been drinking. So I think
There you go.
some type of search for the best mocktail in Vancouver
Wow.
would be a very noble quest.
That sounds like
Um,
fun.
yeah, he is an excellent foodie, so I'm sure he probably has some good ideas on that as well.
I bet he does. He could probably give us a new top 10 list.
Yeah,
Yes.
he a number of years ago for the Hearties family reunion, he did, I don't know if it was 10, but it was a multiple of his favorite spots, including a donut place at
Oh,
blank
Oh, at Granville Island?
at Granville Island.
oh, good. I
Yeah.
know there was a famous donut shop just on Main Street that closed down this Valentine's Day. So I'm very
Exactly.
glad. So
Right.
Lee's Donuts is the one on Granville Island. I teach a
Yes,
couple
Right.
I
blocks from
believe
there.
that is the
So
one.
it
So
is, that
many
is a good
Hearties
one.
have been there, and he knows
No.
his restaurants. So
Well, I also know Chris. He doesn't discriminate. There's a spectrum in terms of, like, he's got the fine
Philo.
dining ones, but he's also
Philo,
got
yeah.
the stuff where it's just like it's
Yep.
comfort, it's home, it's but so far he's never had a miss on any of his recommendations, because I do remember where was it? He sent me to like the best chocolate chip cookie in town, and
Oh.
he was not wrong.
Wow, we need
Oh.
to know, where was that?
Yeah, we'll have to find out.
Okay.
Because I know he's what is it like a trying to remember the name of the spot, but more so we have similar taste in cookie texture. It's that sort of like crisp-ish sort of chocolate chip cookie. I mean, you got to talk density, you're talking flavor, you're talking like cookie to chip ratio. It's a
Right.
it's a whole thing.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
we're on a
Do some
mission.
research and we will and get back to us on that one, because we need a good source. We need a good source for chocolate chip cookies. Anything else you want to share, Erik? Because this has been a delight. So much fun.
Oh, I'm just so grateful. If there's one thing I can express, just like from top to bottom of all the folks at When Calls the Heart, but getting to do these chats and these podcasts, I've got to do a bunch of them,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
the fans and the engagement are such a treat. I know my partner and I, we watch Sunday evenings, we catch the new episodes, and I'll watch the Twitter threads, and I'll see
Oh.
the cast interacting with the fans, and oh, it's so lovely, it's so wholesome. And I know right now, just in the world, having a little Hope Valley is such a treat.
We hope we get a park, and we hope that Edwin is, it's so funny because at the beginning of the season, when we play this game called Heartyship, and one of the very early guesses, I think it was that probably episode 2 when you were on the train with Lucas, one of the guesses was that that Lucas and Lee and Edwin would get into a fight like on top of the train, like when,
Right.
Oh, like Indiana Jones style. Okay.
there was it was gonna require some stunt actors,
I mean, oh, Kevin and I, we could figure it out. If
No
anything,
problem.
I'd be most concerned for Sarah because I know how much trouble she had with the inside of the train. I can't imagine the amount of consternation for her and the crew for the
Top of
outside.
train, inside the
Yes,
saloon. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly right. Exactly right.
Mhm.
But Brian did seem to suggest that no, that wasn't exactly going to occur, but that things would come to blows. So,
Yeah.
you know, maybe
There
we
you go.
more.
Yeah. We'll see how the politics game goes. I mean,
yeah.
whether or not we keep Mr. Bouchard around as governor, I'll say that Edie Martell seems to have a good head for law and politics too. So
She
maybe
does.
I'll
She
just
does.
jump over to Team Edie.
I think it's wise. And I would recommend that you no longer, reference children as squirrels. I think that may not play
Or
well.
miscreants.
I can find some other rodent, I'm sure. I mean, if I'm a weasel, the kids can be squirrels. I'm sure in some either Watership Down or Beatrix Potter way, we'll all get along.
I do enjoy a good Beatrix Potter joke, so thank you.
Yes.
Like the
I
perfect
mean,
way to
I
end.
have to say, genuinely, my favorite Beatrix Potter is The Tale of Squirrel Nutkin. It's a good time.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I need to go
yes.
back and look.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very
Right.
It's one of the more bizarre ones,
it?
but it does make me chuckle.
I remember reading to my boys one where like somebody like uses a fireplace tool to like
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Beatrix Potter does not mess around in some of those stories.
Okay. Oh my goodness. On that note, it's been such a pleasure, Erik. Thank you so much. And
Thank you all.
Hearties, it's time for you to chime in. Tell us what your opinion is of Edwin, how you think this is going to play out with his political career. Join us back in Hope Valley. We're on Twitter, as you've described, on X, always with the hashtag Hearties. And we have so many more Heart to Hearties coming your way. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our podcast channel, and let us know all your questions. We're excited to continue to share with you. See you next time on Heart to Hearties. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.